You're going to get something at the end of this, a psychological weapon, a way to detect when your own mind is lying to you in real time. But first, I want you to remember the last time you were wrong. Not a small mistake, not forgetting your keys. I mean deeply, embarrassingly, undeniably wrong. And someone proved it. What did you feel first? It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't gratitude. It was heat, tension, a tightening in your chest. Because realizing you're wrong doesn't feel like learning. It feels like dying. Here's the thesis. Realizing you're wrong threatens your identity more than your intelligence. And that's why most people would rather defend a lie than update their truth. This matters because your entire life, your relationships, your career, your self-worth is built on decisions. And decisions are built on beliefs. If you cannot admit you're wrong, you cannot evolve. You can only defend the version of yourself that no longer fits reality. Let's break it down. Your brain does not exist to find truth. It exists to keep you alive. And for most of human history, survival depended on belonging. If the tribe believed something and you didn't, you were out. And if you were out, you were dead. So your nervous system evolved to treat disagreement like danger. That's why when someone challenges your opinion, your body reacts before your logic does. Heart rate increases, cortisol spikes, muscles tighten. You don't feel corrected. You feel attacked. Because evolution wired your brain to protect status and belonging more than accuracy. Being wrong feels like social exile. And exile once meant extinction. Now here's where it gets darker. The smarter you are, the harder it becomes to admit you're wrong. Because intelligence doesn't just help you think. It helps you justify. You can construct elegant defenses. You can cherry-pick data. You can reinterpret events. You can shift definitions. You can win the argument and still be wrong. In fact, the ego loves intelligence. It turns it into armor. You don't use your mind to search for truth. You use it to defend your identity. And the more public your opinion, the harder it becomes to abandon it. Because now it's not just a belief. It's your brand. Think about history. Entire nations defended ideas that collapsed under evidence. People denied scientific discoveries, clung to collapsing systems, fought wars over illusions. Why? Because admitting they were wrong would shatter the story they told about themselves. Look at the resistance when Galileo Galilei said the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. It wasn't just astronomy. It was identity, power, authority. If the Earth wasn't central, what else wasn't? The fear wasn't about stars. It was about losing control. And that fear lives in you. Here's the paradox. You think you want truth, but you actually want certainty. Truth is destabilizing. It forces you to restructure your internal world. Certainty feels safe, even if it's false. That's why conspiracy theories feel powerful. That's why stubbornness feels strong. You're not protecting facts. You're protecting coherence. Your brain hates cognitive dissonance. When two beliefs collide, it creates psychological pain. So instead of changing the belief, you attack the source, dismiss the evidence, distort the memory, rewrite the narrative, anything to avoid the deeper pain. I was wrong. Because if I was wrong about this, what else am I wrong about? Now let's escalate. Realizing you're wrong doesn't just threaten your beliefs. It threatens your past. If you were wrong in a relationship, then you hurt someone unnecessarily. If you were wrong about your career, then you wasted years. If you were wrong about a person, then you misjudged reality. Admitting you're wrong forces you to confront regret. And regret is heavy. So the mind performs a magic trick. It reframes. It wasn't that bad. I didn't have enough information. They misunderstood me. Sometimes those things are true, but often they're anesthesia, because the ego would rather distort the past than destabilize the self. Here's something uncomfortable. Some people would rather destroy a relationship than admit they were wrong in it. You've seen it. Arguments escalate. Voices rise. Evidence becomes irrelevant. The goal shifts. It's no longer about truth. It's about dominance. Because in that moment, being right equals survival. You stop listening. You start performing. And even if you know, deep down you're wrong, you double down. Why? Because backing down feels like shrinking. And shrinking feels like weakness. But that's the illusion. Let me show you the real danger. When you refuse to admit you're wrong, you freeze your identity in time. You become a museum of outdated beliefs. You stop updating, stop adapting, stop growing. And eventually, reality humiliates you. Publicly or privately, but always eventually. Markets chain, people chain, information changes. The person who cannot say, I was wrong becomes fragile, and fragility hides behind arrogance. Now pause. This isn't about other people. This is about you. When was the last time you defended something? Not because it was true, but because it was yours. When was the last time you felt that spike in your chest when someone challenged you? Did you listen? Or did you prepare your counterattack while they were still speaking? Be honest. How often do you seek information that confirms you and avoid information that confronts you? You don't hate being wrong. You hate feeling small. You hate feeling exposed. You hate that moment when your inner narrative cracks. But that crack, that's growth trying to happen. Here's the twist most people miss. The pain of being wrong is proportional to how tightly you fuse the belief to your identity. If you say, "This is what I think," you can update it. If you say, "This is who I am," now it's war. Beliefs should be tools, but you turn them into bones. And bones don't bend. They break. Let's go deeper. There are two types of ego. The fragile ego defends. The grounded ego observes. The fragile ego says, "If I'm wrong, I am less." The grounded ego says, "If I'm wrong, I learned." But here's the secret. The grounded ego isn't born. It's built through humiliation, through correction, through choosing truth over comfort, again and again. It's painful, and most people never build it because they never sit in the discomfort long enough. They escape with distraction, with sarcasm, with aggression, with silence, anything but surrender. Now here's your reward. The psychological trick. The weapon. Next time you feel that surge, that defensive spike, don't argue immediately. Label it silently. This is my ego trying to survive. Not I am right. Not they are wrong. Just, my ego feels threatened. That small separation changes everything. Because the moment you can observe the reaction, you are no longer controlled by it. You create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you can choose growth, or you can choose protection. Most will choose protection. That's why most stay the same. Final truth. Realizing you're wrong is not humiliation. It's expansion. It's the death of a smaller self and the birth of a larger one. But birth is violent. Transformation hurts. And evolution feels like loss before it feels like power. So the next time reality confronts you, don't rush to defend. Don't rush to speak. Notice the heat. Notice the fear. Notice the shrinking. And ask yourself, am I protecting truth? Or am I protecting identity? Because one will make you comfortable. The other will make you dangerous to your old self. And that is where real power begins. Sit with that and see what in you resists it most.